So I watched back quite a bit of the Puerto Rico game, and I got to give credit where credit's due to the Puerto Rico coach in a to an extent. Like I feel like in general he did a good job at what he tried to do. And what he tried to do was he tried to do two things. Well, he tried to minimize how badly they lost this game. That was his tactic. And how he did that was by, other than Trinity San Antonio, who was just doing her thing, by slowing it down, playing a slow game, being willing to score 48 points. And by the way, I didn't even think they were going to score 48. I thought it was going to be less. I think they scored 15 the first half or something. But he was willing to drop 30 in that game just to not give up 100. So it was to score a lot, very low amount of points, to keep it as low scoring as possible. And to do that, they needed the ball out of Caitlin Clark's hands. And they defended very, very differently when Caitlin was on the floor and Caitlin was off the floor. And that is, by the way, like, for anyone being like, oh, Caitlin Clark she had a bad game. And it's like, yes, in a vacuum, she as an individual had a bad game. But like, the other team's defense was to the extent that they left Jackie Young wide open. They didn't guard, to the extent that they did not guard Jackie Young when she was on the floor with Caitlin. They just didn't guard her. To that extent, they were so focused on Caitlin Clark. So you can't really argue she had a bad game when the entire team's defense shifted when she walked on the floor. So most of the time, Puerto Rico play man in that game. And I think they were okay. Like, I think Paige did a really good, like, they weren't easy shots Paige hit. I actually think they did a pretty good job defensively. I think schematically they did a good job defensively. And I think overall, I thought Paige was very, very, Paige was the one player I thought Kelsey Plum was able to get downhill, but I thought Paige was the one player who was able to kind of break them down and get her own shot in the man defense. But you can't know how Caitlin Clark would have gotten on against this team because they didn't play any man defense when Caitlin Clark was on the floor. When Caitlin Clark was on the floor, they went into a press. They went into a zone press. And what was the point of the zone press? And I mean this when I say this, like, if you saw the zone press that they played, like, it was not, you know, some teams run zone press. Teams run zone press for different reasons. Like, teams run zone press for steals. Teams run zone presses to speed you up. They ran a zone press to get the ball out of Caitlin Clark's hands. So I'm just going to show you guys what roughly, like, I can't show any clips, by the way. I had an entire video made about Zhang Jiu that got geo-blocked worldwide before it got released. So I unfortunately cannot show any clips of these games. So you're going to be seeing scuffed drawings here of a basketball court right here. Seeing really scuffed drawings. So basically, what they did was wherever Caitlin, they inbounded the ball. Sometimes they inbounded the ball to Caitlin, sometimes they didn't. In the half court, I mean this. Like, they looked off Caitlin a few times, but there were literally times where Angel, say, has the ball and is dribbling the ball, and Caitlin's maybe here, and the defender's like here. Like, not in full denial, but just on Caitlin Clark. So what basically they did on the defensive end with Caitlin Clark is they never went like full denial on Caitlin Clark, but like whether it was off a rebound, whether it was off in the press, they had someone standing in the zone. Someone stood beside Caitlin Clark at all times. So what it did was it meant that they were second guessing it. So if a player on Team USA sees Jackie Young wide open or Caitlin Clark with someone beside them, they're passing it to the wide open Jackie Young. Then Jackie Young or Ryan or Kat Copper are taking it to the basket. And by the time anything happened, the ball's just not in Caitlin Clark's hands. That's what their goal was. But in the press, it was Angel a lot. They did not guard this spot right here. They did not guard here. So what would happen is, let's just say hypothetically, Caitlin is inbound the ball. There were times where it was almost like 2 or sometimes they had 3 to the ball. There were times in the game where it almost looked like they had a 3-2 kind of press or a 3-1-1 press where you kind of one here, one here. There were times they ran like a 2, it looked like it was a 2-2-1. Like it was kind of awkward, But like, it was almost a different thing. It was a not very good press. And the point of the press is that if they got the ball, if USA threw the ball, let's just say it's Caitlin. If Caitlin throws the ball here to Angel and Angel gets the ball, immediately what was happening was this pass and this pass were wide open. They were wide open. So Angel then gets the ball to Jackie. And whatever they've set up. Now Jackie has the ball here. And Caitlin's coming down the floor. Jackie's being picked up by one. Caitlin gets picked up by another player. And then there's some sort of ball movement. Ryan's there wide the fuck open in the corner. The ball might get thrown to Ryan. There's some sort of ball movement. But because there's a body on Caitlin, someone here on Caitlin as she's trailing, they're going to keep an eye on her. Whatever happens, ball movement, ball gets somewhere. There was very little. What I found, there was a couple of times where the ball kind of went down low to Angel Reese and Kat Copper dived or something. But what is a really noticeable thing is that there was no, what could have gotten Caitlin more looks is that there was no, a couple of times even people drove into the middle. Every single player in the offense, so the zone offense a lot of the time is kind of pass, post player maybe comes out and then a wing flashes in the middle. It's a normal offense. Either that or they just winged it. So a lot of times when they didn't wing it, when they might wing it in high-low or something. But a lot of the time it was kind of post player comes up, ball gets cut, guard comes through and flashes in the middle. In every scenario, whoever flashed into the middle immediately either shot, drove, or looked downhill. What we didn't see was there was a couple of times where, let's just say Caitlin Clark, she's on this wing. And even though there is always that defender there was no times where it's like, okay, the ball's there in the middle. And they looked back to her, which they didn't. And the reason why is because the defender that's meant to be guarding the middle in a lot of these scenarios is one of the top players. Because if the back guy in this 2-3 zone comes and guards the middle, you're fucked. Comes and guards the flash across, you're fucked. So what ended up happening a lot of the time was that the player that's meant to be guarding this flash, guarding the high post if it's ever a guard, or even guarding the drive or pinching in, was just on Caitlin Clark. They weren't denying her. They weren't following her or anything. They just always had somebody on Caitlin. Like, they locked in on Caitlin. That was their tactic, was the ball doesn't go into Caitlin's hands. So what ended up happening was we were seeing Ryan wide open from corner threes. I think she shot one from wide open from both corners. We saw Jackie Young. We saw whatever happened. Jackie Young here. And Caitlin, I'm pretty sure Caitlin was like here. Jackie Young had the ball. And they still just stuck on Caitlin Clark for a wide open Jackie Young three. We saw a lot of that. So we saw an awful lot of, we saw a team whose aim was to not let Caitlin do anything. I wouldn't call it freezing out. I think their goal was to try to get the team to freeze out Caitlin. I was supposed to say I wouldn't call it freezing out. No, I would call it freezing out. I'm not going to call it intentional freezing out, but that was their goal. And it worked. It really, really worked. So whereas for Senegal, their goal was to get the ball out of Caitlin Clark's hands in the half court. In Puerto Rico's case, it was they wanted Caitlin to give up the ball as early as possible and then never get it back. So what they wanted to do was they didn't double team. What Senegal were doing was they were sending double and triple teams at Caitlin to try force her into turnovers. Puerto Rico actually weren't. Like Caitlin Clark's turnovers, one of them was a drive in. She passed it to Angel. Angel, I don't really know. Angel fumbled the ball and then the ball's kind of landing at the baseline and Caitlin saves the ball from going out of play and she saves the ball to the other team. And I'm like, it's not a Caitlin turnover. But and the other one was a pass that Kalia was about that much over Kalia Copper's head and she just decided not. She just didn't catch it. She just wasn't expecting it. And the third turnover was her literally, she's dribbling and she's like calling for Dearica Hamby to set her a screen going baseline and Dearica Hamby just doesn't. Like she's like pointing for Dearica Hamby and Dearica Hamby's just doing the opposite and then Caitlin dribbles the ball out of bounds and I'm like, what are we doing? But it was very much a case where Puerto Rico was, Senegal were trying to turn her over. Puerto Rico didn't care. They didn't care. Puerto Rico did not care if Caitlin Clark was able to make any sort of outlet pass. What they didn't want was Caitlin Clark to make the final pass. They didn't want Caitlin Clark to make the assist pass. They didn't want Caitlin Clark to get downhill so she could swing to corners. They didn't want Caitlin Clark to be able to run the pick and roll. They wanted Caitlin Clark out of the game. And it seems like they were confident that if Caitlin gave it up, she wasn't going to get it back. And it worked. They took the ball out of Caitlin Clark's hands in the backcourt, and they made sure as hell. And by the way, they didn't go for offensive rebounds, just got back on defense. It worked well. Like, I'm not saying it worked well for Team USA. I'm saying it took the ball out of Caitlin's hands, and they stopped Caitlin. That was their goal. Their goal was not to win this game. Just don't get this twisted. Senegal tried to win. Puerto Rico didn't. Puerto Rico did not try to win this game. But they knew that, like, look, if we let this facilitator take over and run the show and play like Magic Johnson and make it the Showtime Lakers, we're done. So what we're doing is we're taking the ball out of our hands. Like 2 assists for Caitlin Clark. And by the way, Caitlin Clark, until the fourth quarter, had 1 pass to a shot. She passed it once that resulted in a shot going into the fourth quarter. Like, it was a game plan to perfection, if we're being real, based on what he tried to do. Again, was it annoying? Yes. But what he tried to do was, it worked. It absolutely worked in stopping Caitlin. And look, they lost by 43 instead of 70. So I guess what the coach did was great. And this is coming from somebody who, look, I'm not a particularly, I coach quite a bit of basketball. What I'm really good at as a coach is these types of games. I'm really good at coaching. Like, if you give me a good team, I'm not the greatest person at coaching a good team. What I'm really good at as a coach is, if you give me a team that is 40 points, 50 points worse than another team, being able to drag that team that's 50 points better than us into a dogfight, into a game where instead of it being 50, it might be 15. That's one of the things I'm really good at. And I know that tactic when I see it. Team USA are too good to do that and win. But that is what Puerto Rico tried to do. Puerto Rico tried to drag USA down to their level. And the scary thing is that if a good team comes out with this tactic, I would be concerned if I was USA. I would be concerned. If I'm looking at tape, I mean this, if I'm looking at tape, what I'm looking at from the perspective of USA as a coach is, look, we let them do exactly what they want to do on defense. It's like they wanted to take the ball out of her hands. We let them. We let them do that. It was like, it worked. We won the game. But it's like, there are games where we need to get the ball into her hands. It's like, we need her facilitating at times. And they need to have some sort of a tactic for when a team doesn't make it easy for Caitlin to get the ball back. And it's nothing to do, by the way, with Caitlin Clark cutting off the ball. Nothing to do with that. Because Caitlin could have been fucking Klay Thompson off the ball. They're still not passing her the ball. Because it's hard. You've got a bunch of players on this team who want to make the easy pass. And that's what I mean. Like, you have a bunch of players that would rather, like, if you're these players, they would rather make an easy pass to Jackie Young than a slightly more difficult pass to Caitlin Clark. And the scary thing is that if teams rightfully are like, the biggest threat on this team is Caitlin. We don't want her to have the ball in their hands. And now it's at the stage where it's like, shit, okay, this is kind of what's happening right now. But anyway, yeah, that's the video. See you guys.